निकिता स्क्रीन दिसते का?
हो सर.
आपण करूया सुरू. होतील जॉईन हा.
हो सर.
So this is the last subunit, that is characteristics and fauna of. Now we are going to study here the different types of shores, that is rocky shore, sandy shore, and muddy shore. And you know that Indian coastal line is composed of these three different types of shores, and mixed type of, sometimes you'll find sandy and muddy shores, they are mixed, and there is different characteristics are there topographically, as well as the fauna varies according to the habitat. If the habitat is sandy, then the fauna which is found in that particular shore, that particular coastal line, it differs and shows certain adaptations, and that we are going to study in details. So rocky shore has a wide variety of obstacles for the marine animals, and this has the following characters. One by one, we'll be discussing on these characters. The first one is rocky pool or steady water bodies present in intertidal zone. Now, this we have studied different types of zonations while studying the marine habitat. So, intertidal zone of this marine habitat of this rocky shore, uh, the rocky pools form of the different distinct habitat in this intertidal zone. the size of this rocky pool varies greatly. Some rocky pools are smaller in size, formed by filling small depressions or the cavities of the rock during high tide, and there is complete interchange of seawater in every high tide. So, whenever there is high tide, the rocky shores water enters into this, and again the water is completely recedes down. So there is complete interchange of this seawater in every at the every high tide, while some rocky pools are very large in size, present near low tide level, that they are present above the high tide level also. In the small shallow pools, our major salinity changes occurs during low tide, while in deep rocky pools the salinity changes are negligible, because uh, this in the large pool the water remains in that those pools for a long time, so chances of uh, change in the salinity is totally negligible. The seaweeds present in such as uh, which gives a better shelter to the different marine animals such as sponges, hydroids, sea anemones, tunicates, and there is also very rich population of crustaceans such as planktonic copepods, amphipods, different varieties of crabs, prawns, lobsters. Molluscan fauna of the rocky pool includes mussels. Mussels means mitylus here. Then certain snails such as dories, chitons, patella. These are the mollusks which are adapted for holding the rock with their foot properly, getting stuck to the rocks. Trochus, turbo, other marine gastropods are also observed. So the second characteristics is here is submerged rock which are never exposed. Means they are completely under water below the level of eulittoral or the intertidal zone, and the subtidal sublittoral zone of the benthic habitat. They have studied pelagic as well as the benthic zonations while studying the marine habitat. So these rocky shores, these submerged rocks, they are present below this eulittoral, intertidal or sublittoral zone of the benthic habitat. Now the submerged rocks are not subjected to salinity change, that is, salinity change, temperature, and sunlight, but they are subjected to constant action of the tidal waves. Naturally, because wave currents are often having effect on these rocks, it promotes dense growth of marine algae because it is completely submerged. The fauna of such submerged rock mainly includes sessile or free and fixed or sedentary animals such as Mytilus, pearl oysters, patella, cypri, याला आपण कवडी म्हणतो ते सायप्री. The marine sponges like Cycon, Branchia and are very common. Coelentrates are represented by Turbularia, Gorgonia म्हणजे सी फॅन. आपण तुम्ही मागे BSc 1ला असताना सी फॅन गॉर्गोनिया पाहिला असेल. Worms like Nereis, crustaceans like crabs, hermit crabs, echinoderms are represented by sea cucumbers, feather star, and antedon, etc. So, third characteristic is rocks which are never submerged even at high tide. म्हणजे हाय टाईड अँड लो टाईड. हाय टाईड असेल तर पूर्ण पाण्याखाली जाणारे रॉक, आणि हाय टाईड असून सुद्धा रॉक पाण्याच्या वर दिसतात. दिस इज द वन ऑफ द कॅरेक्टरिस्टिक्स ऑफ द रॉकी हॅबिटॅट, रॉकी शोर. The height of some rock is not is much maximum. They are present much above the normal sea level. Hence, they are not submerged. Even at high tide, also such rocks are subjected to various इकॉलॉजिकल फॅक्टर. आता मगाच्या ह्याच्यामध्ये फरक आहे बघा. इथं टेम्परेचरचा, सनलाईटचा, वेव्ह ॲक्शनचा. Some of the rocks are facing to sea or oceans. Such rocks are subjected to the tidal waves. बघा, tidal waves. While the opposite side of such rocks, म्हणजे opposite side म्हणजे किनारपट्टीची बाजू. Opposite side of such rock is washed by marine water. Some tidal waves are dashing against such high rock so that oxygen from air get dissolved in the rock. The exposed rocks contains marine animals like barnacles. बघा, समुद्राच्या किनारपट्टीवर अशा प्रकारचे रॉक्स आणि त्या रॉक्सवर असणारे बार्नाकल्स, मसल्स, मायटिलस आर ऑल्सो ऑब्झर्व. The fourth characteristic is rocks and stones which are not dislodged by wave action. पाण्याचा, लाटेचा कसलाही प्रादुर्भाव न झालेले असे प्रकारचे खडक, मोठे दगड त्या रॉकी शोरला असणे. Now some rocks are isolated and separated. They have circulation of water below them. Marine animals are living near such stones requires protection from water movements and desiccation. म्हणजे अशा सेपरेट असलेले मोठी दगडं, रॉक्स, यांच्या खाली आसरा घेणारे प्राणी इथं दिसून येतात. The stability of rocks is very important for the colony formation of these marine animals. So, the fauna which is taking shelter in these rocks, these are different crustaceans, annelids, which are present below shoreline, such as nereis, annelid worms, echinoderms like sea cucumber, sea urchin, etc. They are found in these rocks and stones which are not dislodged. And the fifth characteristics is that rocks embedded in sand and mud. Now, some rocks are embedded in sand. They are subjected to erosion due to the movement of sand particles due to marine water. म्हणजे भरती ओहोटीचा प्रादुर्भाव याच्यावर होतच असतो. शिवाय घर्षण, वाळूच्या कणांचं घर्षण रॉक बरोबर हे सतत सातत्यानं होत असल्यानं इरोजन घडून येतं. While some of the rocks are various, uh, while some of the rocks are subject to the various activities of the marine animals such as feeding, respiration, etc. The effect of erosion is maximum in the region of reverse or opposite wave action. म्हणजे पहा, जेव्हा भरती येते, पाणी किनारपट्टीकडं आलेलं असतं, लाट वेगाने किनारपट्टीकडे येत असत, तेव्हा ज्या इरोजन होत नसते. परंतु जेव्हा लाट परत आतमध्ये समुद्रात जात असते त्यावेळेस तिथं इरोजन होण्याची शक्यता जास्त किंवा त्याचा प्रादुर्भाव तिथं जास्त होत असतो. नाव Next point here is the adaptation of the rocky shore. The first is the adhesive organs. Now, as the substratum is hard, the organism needs to get stuck to this rocky surface. So, for this solid rocky surface, provides safe or the secure place for attachment. So different adhesive organs चिकटून राहण्यासाठीचे शरीरामध्ये असणारे जे अवयव आहेत they are present in different animals. Now this calcareous and siliceous sponges are forming thick bed on the rocks. Coelentrates like sea anemone are attached to the rocks with the help of pedal disc. Polychaetes with calcareous tube get attached to the rocks, or the seaweeds are also present attached to the uh, rocky shore. The cement gland is present near the base of the stalk of balanus, which is useful for attachment of the rocks. While certain tunicates or tunicates म्हणजे इथं एक्झाम्पल द्यायचं झालं तर हर्डमॅनिया. Certain tunicates or ascidians, they produce adhesive secretion with the help of which they are attached to the rocks. For the attachment to the rocks, such in case of chiton, patella, turbo, these are the mollusks, etc. They produce byssus thread. So their foot is modified and for the attachment, while several morphological changes has been observed due to fixed or the sedentary mode of life. Now, next one is loss of locomotory organs. Now, uh, in case of Mytilus, instead of foot, which is generally used in the mollusks for locomotion, this foot is lost, is reduced, and in case of these Mytilus, byssus threads are developed, and with the help of these byssus threads, the Mytilus get attached to the rocks. The next one is the mouth and anus at same level, or they are generally on the dorsal side, as in case of Ascidian, that is in case of Herdmania. Herdmaniaचं जर आपण, of course adult is formed attached to the substratum, but if you'll find, if you observe this, the oral aperture and the anal aperture, mouth as well as the anus, they are present at the same end, or on the dorsal surface. Then next one is the protection. Now for protection, thick test or tunic, हडमण्याचा again the example is हडमण्या, बटाट्यासारखा दिसणारा ट्रान्सल्युसेंट बॉडी असणारा काही प्रमाणामध्ये शरीरातले अवयव आपल्याला दिसतात, परंतु हे जे टेस्ट अँड ट्युनिक शरीरावर असते दॅट इज व्हेरी प्रोटेक्टिव्ह. इन balanus is an arthropod which is attached to the rock. Shell is well developed and this shell is very protective. Tube is developed from the shell piece in case of tuberculous polychaetes. They show contraction of the exposed organs. Now, next one is ciliary mode of feeding. uh, Special ciliature is developed into the body. So, because of the biting, say for in case of these mollusks, in case of oysters, in the body is adapted in such a way that their movements of the cilia present in their respiratory organs, they develop the water current which allows the water to enter into the body, and along with that water current the food material is taken in. So generally they have a ciliary mode of feeding. Then rapid power of contraction. Now, during unfavorable conditions, the Sira movement in balance, tentacular movement in annelids, these they are withdrawn inside the body. So they have a rapid power of contraction if the animal is disturbed, or if it sense any danger. The next one is the efficient sense organs. Now, the sense organs are much well developed in case of these tuberculous annelids and mollusks. So, certain sensory structures, sensory organs, they are very much uh, developed, sensitive to detect the chemical nature. Some of them are very much sensitive for the tactile or the sense of touch is very much well developed in these animals. Then asexual reproduction. Now, in many sessile animals, reproduction occurs by asexual method, such as by budding, forming large colonies, as in case of coelenterate, such as coelenterate colonies, and the ascidians like Botryhilus, ascidian class Acidiacea of protochordates, where such a sexual mode of reproduction is observed. Suspended activity. Now, the organisms during unfavorable conditions, they remain for a long period in the condition of the suspended activity, which can be compared with the uh, period of estivation and hibernation of the terrestrial animal. जसे फ्रॉग, हे टोड्स, हे जसे एस्टिवेशन म्हणजे विंटर स्लीप आणि समर स्लीप मध्ये जातात, सुप्त अवस्थेमध्ये राहतात, तशा प्रकारचे बाकी सगळ्या ॲक्टिव्हिटीज थांबवून सुप्त अवस्थेमध्ये जाण्याची क्षमता या रॉकी शोरच्या फाउंडामध्ये आढळून आली होती. डिफेन्स मेकॅनिझम. Defense mechanism is well developed in the marine animals, which are such as spicules in sponges, stinging cells in coelentrates. Stinging cells, nidoblasts. Stinging cells are present. And last one is presence of air bladder. Air bladder is developed in certain marine animals in which air is stored, which is used for respiration and additional source of O2. For example, in case in fishes, pulmonary chamber, in case air bladders are present in fishes, and the pulmonary chamber in case of mollusk. If you have studied certain univalves of a very common example, if you compare this pulmonary chamber as the organs of storing air. You have studied pila in detail last year. So pila is a very good example in which respires. It is amphibious. It respires. It can take the atmospheric air, as well as it has the ctenidium, which is having a capacity to absorb oxygen, dissolved oxygen from water. So whatever during terrestrial life, these phyla, when it inspires the atmospheric air, that atmospheric air is stored in the pulmonary chamber. So such type of adaptations are observed, faunal adaptations are observed in case of this rocky shore. The next shore is sandy shore. The sandy shores are formed by deposition of sand particles which are formed by erosion of the rock and sandy particle carried by the river water. म्हणजे जसं रॉकचं इरोजन होऊन आणि ते डिपॉझिट करून किनारपट्टीला शोर तयार होऊन मोस्ट ऑफ द coastal lines, they are dominated by this sandy shore. The texture of the sand may differ from place to place. Now, the sandy shore is a mixture of sand particles of the different size. There is the gradation of sand particles and the different parts of the shore. Now, most coarse sand, bhardi, zadi bhardi, sand particles are present in the upper part, that is supralittoral zone of sandy shore. वरच्या बाजूला. Very fine sand particles are present on sublittoral or ulittoral intertidal uh, zone. The action of wave controls size of the grain. So it depends of to what extent that this shore is subjected to the wave action. Smaller stones, cores, and particles are present at places where maximum wave action are present. See. So sandy shore provides more or less uniform ecological conditions or habitat for marine fauna, which contains various groups of animals found in the sandy shore. Tapa. Seaweeds are absent on sandy shore. Point to be noted, they are absent here due to absence of surface area for attachment. Such seaweeds are absent. Sedentary marine animals like sponges, coelentrates are absent on sandy shore. The large sized sand grains have low capacity of retaining water after low tide. Hence, very less number of animals are present in it. म्हणजे जसं जसं सँडची साईज बारीक होईल तसं त्याच्यामध्ये असणारे वॉटर होल्डिंग कॅपॅसिटी ही वाढत असते. Fauna of intertidal sandy shore is rich because of sand particles are very fine. While the fauna is also rich where sand is mixed with mud because it retains more water. म्हणजे जे काय बारीक बारीक गॅप दोन पार्टिकल्समध्ये राहिलेला असतो तो गॅप सुद्धा माती मिश्रित जर वाळू असेल तर दॅट कॅन बी गेट इंटर filled and which increases the water holding capacity. The different ecological factors such as temperature, salinity, sunlight, desiccation or drying acts uniformly on the intertidal sandy shore. The productivity of this sandy shore up to certain limit is dependent on the presence of inorganic detritus formed by deposition of seaweeds and dead animals present in it. Now, some of the saline features of the sandy shore, that is shifting substratum. Wow. The substratum, the sandy shore, in sandy shore, the substratum is labile and not static. म्हणजे हल वाळूच्या कणांच्या हालचालीमुळे बदलू शकणारा भाग. Due to the action of wind and strong waves, sand particles are transported. The wet sand particles are always carried and moved away by wave everywhere. किनारपट्टीला जरी आपण किनारपट्टीवर जरी उभं राहिलो असतो आणि पाण्याची जर लाट आली तर आपल्याला बघत जाणवतं असं की आपल्या पायाखालची वाळू त्या परत जाणाऱ्या लाटेबरोबर निष्ठून गेलेली असते. त्यामुळं हा सबस्ट्रॅटम स्थिर नसतो आणि शिफ्टिंग टाईप ऑफ सबस्ट्रॅटम इज द वन ऑफ द फीचर ऑफ दिस सँडी शोर. Then next is the size of the grain. The size of the sand grain is controlled by wave action. Stronger wave action causes coarse sand particles, while the weaker wave action causes fine sand particles. Now, the grade of the sand is always determined by water level. Higher water level have fine grains, and lower water level has coarse sand particles. From low tide mark to high tide mark, size of sand particle decreases. So such type of uh, changes in the sand grains occur. Interstitial system. पहा आता शब्द कसा वापरला बघा. Interstitial system. Now the space present between दोन वाळूंच्या कणांमध्ये the space present between sand particles is called interstitial space. If sand grains are large, the interstitial space is also large naturally. When sand grains are fine, the interstitial space is also small. The sand grain retains water in interstitial system by capillary action, and such water is called as interstitial water, which contains marine animals forming interstitial fauna. अशाही बारीक बारीक जागेचा फायदा घेणारे सुद्धा ॲनिमल्स असतात. The next one is the slope of sandy shore. Slope of sandy shore. Now, wave action controls the slope of sandy shore and size of the sand grain. Stronger the wave action, हायर इज द बीच स्लोप. आता उदाहरणच द्यायचं झालं तर तुम्ही जर किनारपट्टी जर गणपतीपुळ्याची किनारपट्टी बघितली, मालवणची किनारपट्टी बघितली, रत्नागिरीची किनारपट्टी बघितली, यू विल फाइंड द डिफरन्स इन दिस शोर. अँड इफ यू कम्पेअर दिस सँडी शोर विथ दॅट ऑफ द शोर्स इन वेंगुर्ला कोस्ट, यू विल फाइंड द डिफरन्स इज देअर because the wave action at the Vengurla coast is very high. So the sandy shores which are present at the Vengurla coast, they show much more slope as compared to the uh, coasts which are found at Ratnagiri, Malvan, and at the Ganpatipudi. So even all these three sandy shores are present, and at the western coast shoreline, there is a difference in the nature of the slope which is acquired by the sandy shore. So next one is the organic particles. Sorry. Uh, so sorry, not sand, organic particles. Wave action. Wave action. Now this interstitial sandy shore is also characterized by gentle wave action. During high tide, movement of the floating objects and predators occurs towards shore. Huh? During high tide, the movement of the floating objects and the predators occurs towards shore, but low tide allow uh, a set of predators on the sand to form the abundant sandy fauna. परत पाणी ओहोटीच्या वेळेस त्या सँडी शोरवर असे हे ॲनिमल्स थांबू शकतात, अडकतात. द ॲक्शन ऑफ विंड अँड वॉटर इज carrying away the particles of some selective bases. The smaller and fine sand particles are easily transported and results into sorting of particles on basis of size and density, while heavier large particles are very often pushed up the beach because incoming waves are more powerful than the receding waves. So wave action has thus this effect on the fauna also. Temperature. The temperature conditions of rocky shore is very similar to the sandy shore. During midday of summer increases surface temperature of sand by 10 degrees than that of the sea. But during severe winter season, temperature of sand is very low, which results in mortality and of burrowing animals like cardium and arenocola. Salinity. Now, salinity of interstitial water of sandy shore is very similar to that of seawater, but in the surface layer of the interstitial water, means water which is trapped in the between the sand particles, the salinity increases due to evaporation of water. So such difference is there. Organic particles. Organic particles of sandy shore is formed by decaying of seaweeds, dead animals, fecal matter, and detritus. The organic content is generally expressed as a percent of organic carbon. The percent of organic carbon of sand governs abundance of burrowing animals in the sand, which feeds on the organic deposit. So, whenever the organic material in the sand is increased, they'll find that sandy shore is rich in the burrowing animals. The next point here is the fauna of sandy shore. Now, fauna. Similar, certain specific fauna is present. Say, for example, if you talk about coelentrates, Physalia, Porpita, Velella, Medusae, sea anemones are also observed. Actually, abundance of the sea animals is found as far as this rocky substratum is concerned. But some of the sea animals are also observed where the sand particles are very coarse, मोठमोठे खडे वाळूचे जर तिथं असतील तर तिथं हे सी ॲनिमल छोटे स्पीसीज तिथे सापडतात. Annelids like Glycera, Ernicola, Pectinaria, tentaculata are found. Arthropods like Albunia, Hypa, hermit crab. Hermit crab आपल्याला वाळू बघा शंखामध्ये असलेल्या hermit crab या सँडी शोरला आपल्याला जास्त प्रमाणामध्ये पाहायला मिळतात. Ghost crab, amphipods, isopods are other members of arthropods. Mollusks like Olivia, Murex, Aplysia, Oncidium, clams, Cardium, most gastropods, etc., are the members of mollusks. Echinoderms such as starfishes, sea cucumber, ophiothrix, sand sea cucumbers are also observed. Protochordates like Amphioxus, Baranoglossus, Secu, Secoglossus, etc. Fish, certain fish, Glossogobis, Glossogobis अगदी किनारपट्टीवर मासा सापडणार. Reptiles like sea turtles are also found in the vicinity of the sandy. Now, what are the adaptations? Certain adaptations are also there. The first adaptation is burrowing. आता बोरोईंगमध्ये सुद्धा वेगवेगळे ऑर्गन्स आहेत. As sandy shores have shifting substratum due to the wind action, wave action, most of the animals can quickly burrow into the sand. Such animals have following adaptations for burrowing. The proboscis. Proboscis is the organ which is present at the anterior side of the body. Now, this proboscis is found in case of Bananaglossus. Anterior proboscis is very conical in shape, which is used for burrowing. Prostomium. This is prostomium. This is very much common in Glaciaria. Neris मध्ये सुद्धा prostomium well developed असते. Anterior muscular pointed prostomium is present for burrowing. Shell. Shell, a flattened shell of Solen, Dentalium, Hastidanta, which is help in the burrowing. नंतर foot, foot of Solen, Dentalium, and are pointed and used for digging. Then appendages of crabs and other crustaceans help them to bury quickly in the sand. Okay. The next is tuberculous habitat. ट्युबिक्युलस म्हणजे एक बरोळ तयार करणे आणि आतमध्ये वाळूमध्ये यूट्यूब आकाराचा घरटं तयार करणे आणि त्यामध्ये राहणे. सम ॲनलिड्स सच ॲज ॲरेनिकोला lives in a permanent tube in order to protect themselves from unbearable environment within sand particles. The next is a mucus secretion. Some soft bodied annelids secrete slimy mucus around their body. This mucus helps in keeping moisture around their body. The mucus also helps in keeping or forming cover of sand grains over body of body for protection against wave action. The next is the terrestrial life. Now, during low tide, sandy shore is exposed to the terrestrial factor. Some certain intertidal sandy shore animals leads a temporary terrestrial life. For example, ghost crab, hermit crab, fiddler crab, etc. They return to water occasionally to moisten their gills. Otherwise, they can survive on the sand which is exposed. Then, filter feeding mechanism is the main characteristics feature of the burrowing life. Hypa and Albonia burrows backward facing sea and lie buried. The antenna acts as a passive filter in the uh, mouthparts of these animals are so arranged that are they can effectively prevent the entry of the sand inside it. For example, Tribella polychaetes tuberculous animal with neat bearing long muscular tentacles. Deposits and detritus feeders. The Arenicola marina is deposit feeder. It feeds on the organic material deposited in the sand. The food is collected by filter feeding and sand feeding method, which Arenicola and Bananoglossus depends on the detritus. The detritus composed of broken pieces of plants and animals, decaying organic material, etc. Protective coloration is the another adaptation. Certain sandy shore animals have developed the protective coloration so in order to camouflage with the color of the sands, for example, in case of Albunia. Respiration. When sandy shore animals remain buried, respiration is carried out by the tubes which projects above the surface of the sand. When Albinia remains buried, the two antennae are held together so that they form the respiratory tube through which the respiratory water is taken in. Okay. And the last one is the characteristics fauna of muddy shore. Now, muddy shore it shows or it is formed at the mouth of regions of river where wave action is less. The powerful water movement are absent due to mixing of to freshwater river with marine water from sea or oceans. Now the organic particles and the mud carried by river water slowly sink or settle down to the bottom every year so as to produce muddy shore because of the deposition. The muddy shore is closely related to sand than rocky shore. The rocky shores are also present in shallow water coastal and is quite in quiet bays or calm marine waters. If size of particles is between 5 to 6 microns, 5 to 60 microns, the shore becomes muddy. Due to small size, interstitial space is absent in mud. So, at certain region, sandy and muddy shores are mixed, having many intergradations. The mud contains high organic content, hence provides rich food supply to detritus feeding animals. At the surface, aerobic bacterial decomposition takes place while at the lower level anaerobic activities takes place so as to form H2S gas so that mud appears black in color. Generally, this is a phenomenon observed in the muddy shore. Muddy shore has thick vegetation of Zostria plants with long branch roots. Muddy shore contains a relatively higher amount of organic matter in the form of detritus particles. They are formed in the process by being being broken by the bacteria. Oxygen level. Oxygen concentration of muddy shore is less. The temperature of the muddy shore remains constant, and salinity of the intertidal muddy shore is also constant. Now, certain zones are observed, and these zones are supra-littoral zone, mid-littoral zone, and sub-littoral zone of the muddy shore. Now, this supra-littoral zone lies close to the landmass, म्हणजे सगळ्यात कडेचा बाजूचा किनारपट्टीच्या बाजूकडचा भाग झोन. In muddy beaches, this zone is occupied by mangrove swamp, salt marshes. It is the area of the soft, flat, wet land which gets periodically flooded by the marine water of the sea in the temperate region. आता मॅक्झिमम फ्लोरा काय बघा ह्या सुपला लिटरल झोनचा. झॉस्टेरिया प्लांट्स, फाउना, टेरेस्ट्रियल ॲज मरेन, दोन्ही टाईपचे. टेरेस्ट्रियल फाउना इन्क्लूड्स इन्सेक्ट्स, बर्ड्स, mammals. Marine fauna includes soft marshy birds like sparrows, fishes like Periophthalmicus, bolio, boliophthalmil, boliophthalmacus, etc. Hermit crab, barnacles, crassopteria, cuculata, mud lobsters, etc. Is the fauna. Mid-littoral zone मध्ये it is occupied by the molluscan fauna such as Cardium and Mocoma. It resembles to fauna of the sandy shore. आणि आतल्या बाजूला त्यातल्या त्यात खालच्या बाजूला आतल्या म्हणजे समुद्राकडच्या बाजूला सबलिटरल झोन which is dominated by bivalve and Chitopterus. Phytoplanktons, zooplanktons such as Seratium, Sagitta, Lucifer, Plurobranchia, Oikopleura, sponges, coelentrates, annelids like Nereis, Aphrodite, arthropods, mud crab, hermit crab, mud lobster, mollusk like edible oyster, Terbellaria, murex, etc. Echinoderms like starfish, sea cucumber, fish, acidia like protochordates like Botrytis. Now, last point here is adaptations of the muddy shore. Now, these adaptations they are very similar to that of the sandy shore. The mud is composed of fine particles of sand, clay, silt, and organic particles. The muddy shore has soft substratum as muddy shore contains salt marshes and mangrove swamps. The animals found in it possesses wide variety of adaptation. Fauna of muddy shore shows following adaptations. They also show borrowing type of adaptations as we have observed in case of this sandish where the prostomium acts as a burrowing organ, foot is also acts as a burrowing organ, certain appendages in case of these crabs they they act as a then tuberculous life as in case of albini. certain again the mucus secretion is also shown by this of these animals of this muddy shore, which helps in keeping the body moist, keeps the body covered with the mud grains over the body for protection and so on. Terrestrial life during low tide, when it is exposed, animal can lead to the terrestrial life. Protective colorations are also observed, as in case of we have studied in case of sandy shore, branched foot in case of Appalachia. So this branched foot they prevent the organism from or the animal from sinking. And the body can float with the help of this branched. And as in case of respiration, Algonia is the animal which is also found in the muddy shore, where the antenna of these animal they are hold together so as to form a tube, and this tube, this when it burrows inside, this tube is exposed, and with the help of this tube the water uh, is taken into the body, where the tube acts for respiration. Filter feeding. These animals they have the ciliature architecture inside their organs. So water current is developed, and this brings the feeding current. And with the help of this feeding current, the water is taken in, and the food material along with this water current is useful. And last one is the carnivorous feeding. Most of these animals capture and eat greedily on the other marine animals. Such animals are crabs, hermit crabs, etc. Hermit crabs. They live in the mangroves and can even climb the trees at heights above at the high tide level of the muddy shore. So this is what we have uh, 3 points which were remaining, that is sandy shore, rocky shore, and muddy shore. So we have finished up with the total syllabus. पण अजून कोणाचं राहिलंय का सिलेबस निकिता?
येस सर.
कोणाचा सिलेबस राहिलाय का अजून?
सर आयडिया नाहीये काय, पण मे बी पाटील मॅमचा का कट्टे मॅमचा, पाटील मॅमचा झालाय. कट्टे मॅमचे मिस्टर आजारी होते, ऍडमिट होते, त्यामुळे मे बी त्यांचं थोडंसं राहिलंय.
बरं बरं, मी त्यांना सांगतो.
हा सर, पण कन्फर्म माहित नाही मला. पण मला
बरं
असं वाटतं की कट्टे मॅमचा राहिलाय, कारण की मध्ये माझा पण फोन जरा हे झालेला.
बरं बरं, विचारलं तोच मी त्यांना, आणि असेल तर मग त्याच तुमच्याशी कम्युनिकेट करतील ना.
हा चालेल सर, कारण की पाटील मॅम घेणार होत्या. झाले का नाही मला पण एवढी आयडिया नाही.
बरं बरं बरं,
हा चालेल
ठीक
सर.
ठीक आहे मग. ओके, थांबूया इथं.